I can see the image shows two people in a cafe setting. I'd be happy to write a creative short story inspired by this scene. The neighbor's secret Marcus hadn't wanted to go. That was the truth of it. Plain and simple. He'd told Patricia next door at least 4 times that he wasn't ready, that Zoe was only 6 years old and needed stability, not some stranger showing up at their breakfast table smelling like cologne and false promises. He'd said all of that, and Patricia had nodded along patiently, the way she always did, and then she'd signed him up for a blind date anyway. "You need this," she'd said, pressing a sticky note into his hand on a Tuesday morning while he was still holding a lunchbox shaped like a dinosaur. "Saturday, 7 o'clock. Café Lumiere on Broderick Street. Don't you dare cancel." He'd looked at the sticky note. He'd looked at Patricia. She was 63 years old, wore house slippers to collect her mail, and had once chased a raccoon off his porch with a broom at midnight without waking a single neighbor. He knew better than to argue with her. So Saturday came, and Marcus put on his good white shirt, the one Zoe said made him look like a real dad from a movie, and he drove to Café Lumiere, asked for a table by the window, because Patricia had told him the reservation was under her name, and the hostess had smiled knowingly and led him to a small marble table near the glass. He ordered a coffee. He checked his phone. He told himself he'd give it 30 minutes. He heard her before he saw her. A laugh, bright and unguarded, coming from somewhere near the entrance, the kind of laugh that made other people in a room instinctively smile without knowing why. Then footsteps, the soft, confident kind, and then she was there. She stood near the window, and for a moment she didn't see him. She was looking out at the street, one hand resting lightly on the edge of a chair, curly dark hair catching the warm light from the cafe's string bulbs. She wore a pink dress, simple and fitted, and she carried herself the way people do when they've earned their ease, not performing confidence, just living inside it. Then she turned. Their eyes met and something shifted. Marcus felt it the way you feel a change in weather before you can name it. Not fireworks, not the electric cliché of romantic movies. Something quieter and stranger. A recognition, like hearing a song you'd forgotten you knew. She blinked. He realized he was staring and looked down at his coffee. "Marcus?" He looked up. She was closer now, and there was an expression on her face he couldn't quite read, amusement maybe, or surprise with its edges softened. "That's me," he said, and immediately felt like an idiot for saying it. She smiled and sat down across from him, tucking a curl behind her ear. "I'm Nia." "Marcus," he said again, and then caught himself. "You already know that. Sorry. I haven't done this in a while." "Me neither," she said. "How long is a while for you?" 6 years. Something moved across her face. 6 years is a long while. "I have a daughter," he said, because he always said it early. He'd learned that lesson. Better to put it on the table before anything else, let it be the thing that filtered out whoever wasn't serious. "Zoe, she's 6. Nia nodded slowly, and she didn't flinch, didn't do the polite smile that meant noted, moving on. She leaned forward slightly. What's she like? That surprised him. Most people asked her age, maybe her grade, and then pivoted to something else. Nia had asked what she was like. "Chaotic," Marcus said, and he heard his own voice soften. "She narrates everything she does like she's a nature documentary. She's afraid of automatic toilets but not of spiders. She told her teacher last week that her dad makes the second best grilled cheese in the world." Nia raised an eyebrow. "Second best? Patricia next door makes hers with 3 cheeses. He shook his head. "I've been dethroned in my own kitchen." Nia laughed, the same laugh he'd heard from the doorway. Up close it was even better. They talked for 2 hours. He hadn't planned for 2 hours. He'd planned for 30 minutes and a polite exit. But the coffee turned into a second coffee, and the second coffee turned into shared dessert. And somewhere in between, Marcus forgot to keep track of time. Nia was an occupational therapist. She worked with children, mostly, helping them build the bridges between what their bodies knew and what the world expected of them. She talked about her work the way Marcus talked about Zoe, with a specific, detailed love that couldn't be faked. She'd grown up in the city, she told him, lived abroad for a few years, came back. Her mother still lived in the same neighborhood where Nia had gone to middle school. "She's my best friend," Nia said, and smiled. "And my most exhausting person." She once signed me up for a pottery class without asking me, just because she thought I needed a hobby. Marcus set down his coffee cup. What did you say her name was? Nia tilted her head. I didn't. Why? Something was assembling itself in the back of his mind, pieces clicking together with the slow inevitability of a puzzle you'd nearly finished before you'd realized you were solving it. Does she, he said carefully, wear house slippers to get her mail? The silence that followed was extraordinary. Nia stared at him. How do you know that? Does she own a broom she's named? Marcus pressed. Does she leave casseroles on people's doorsteps when she decides they're not eating properly? Does she have a very specific way of nodding that makes you think she's listening, but she's actually already decided what she's going to do? Nia's mouth had fallen slightly open. My neighbor, Marcus said slowly, is named Patricia. The expression on Nia's face completed its journey from confusion through disbelief, and arrived, finally, at stunned laughter. She pressed her hand over her mouth, then gave up and let it out fully, shaking her head. My mother, she said, is named Patricia. They sat with that for a moment. She told me it was a friend's son, Nia finally managed, a single father who needed to get out of the house. She described you as sturdy and sensible. She told me it was someone who'd been too busy to date. She said you were focused and warm. Marcus paused. She did not mention she was setting me up with her own daughter. She never does, Nia said. That's the thing about my mother. She never announces the plan, she just executes it and lets you figure out the rest. Marcus thought about the sticky note. He thought about the 6 years Patricia had watched him from across the fence, watched him learn to braid hair badly and then less badly, watched him figure out school drop-offs and pediatric appointments and the particular loneliness of putting a child to bed and then sitting in a quiet house with no one to tell about your day. She'd been paying attention. The whole time she'd been paying attention. Are you angry? Nia asked, studying him. He considered the question seriously, the way it deserved. Was he angry? He'd been maneuvered, clearly. Arranged like furniture in someone else's plan. He should probably be annoyed, at minimum. He looked at the woman across from him, who had come to a blind date not knowing she'd be meeting her mother's neighbor, who had laughed at his grilled cheese story and asked what his daughter was like and talked about her work with a love that matched his own, and who was currently watching him with an expression caught perfectly between amusement and genuine concern. No, he said, I'm not angry. Her smile came back slowly. Me neither, which is probably exactly what she knew would happen. He texted Patricia from the parking lot. You could have just introduced us. The response came in under a minute. 3 words, where's the fun? Marcus sat in his car and laughed for longer than he expected to. The kind of laugh that releases something, that leaves you lighter than you started. Then he drove home to his daughter and his second-hand dining table and his ordinary complicated life. But he had Nia's number in his phone, and somewhere 2 blocks away, in a house with a porch and a broom and slippers worn down at the heel, Patricia was probably making herself tea and not telling anyone what she'd done, and feeling in her quiet and certain way entirely correct about all of it. Some people spend years looking for the right door. Others are lucky enough to have a neighbor who simply opens it for them.